what I mean? So, yeah, we're about to jump into our strategic planning. We're going to do that in December. And, yeah.
We can talk about that too. The commission has a strategic planning
session coming up this Thursday.
Okay.
All right, show starts in 10.
So we'll have conversations about priorities for next
You
year.
gonna wire me up?
Yeah.
Three-minute warning, 2-minute warning.
Hello there. Welcome to the November 2022 edition of the City Connection. City Connection is the live television program from the Community Media Center with Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss, offering the community the opportunity to hear about the efforts of the City Hall and beyond. With the Community Media Center, I'm your host, Starla McDermott. Today on City Connection, we will be joined by the Deputy City Manager, Kate Behrens. Mayor Bliss will talk with the Deputy City Manager about her role with the city and the city's strategic plan. And later on City Connection, we provide time with the mayor for your questions and comments. That is in the second half of this program. To take part in the conversation, you can send your questions or comments to cityconnection@grcmc.org, through Twitter @GRTV Access, or by commenting at the GRTV Facebook page. City Connection, a collaboration between the Community Media Center and the City of Grand Rapids, is broadcasting today live on November 7th, 2022, here on the Community Access Television Channel 24, and live streaming at therapidian.org and at GRTV's Facebook page. We will be rebroadcasting this program throughout the month on cable GRTV's Channel 25. And now in the studio with me is Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited. It's my very first time here sitting in this chair. So let's first talk about some exciting stuff coming up tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Election Day.
Yes, Election Day tomorrow. So encouraging everyone to get out and vote. I know a lot of people have already voted with absentee ballots. In fact, I just got an update from our clerk last week, and I think we're right around 18,000 absentee ballots have come in so far. Which is less than 2 years ago, but we know that we had a spike a couple years ago because of COVID. And so a lot of people are now choosing to go back to their precincts and vote in person, which is great.
Perfect.
Polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8, but I always remind people that if you are in line at 8, you get to vote still.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we don't, anyone who's in line will stop at 8 p.m. and we'll let people know.
Perfect.
But if you're in line, stay in line, as we say, and vote. So yeah, big day. Another big important thing to remember for folks is that you can still register to vote tomorrow, but you have to come to City Hall to do that.
Okay.
And you have to have the appropriate
And you can still
form of
vote
ID.
that day.
And you can vote that day.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep. So we have same day voter registration now. But you have to come to City Hall. You can't do that at the precincts.
Right downtown Grand
Right
Rapids.
downtown. Yep.
So a lot of people have volunteered to offer transportation to everybody, friends that they know. Hey, if you want to go, I can give you a ride. But I hear there's another way for people to get to the polls.
Yeah, so this is something we're excited about this year, and that is that the Rapid is providing free rides to the polls.
Perfect.
So this has been done in a couple other communities. I serve on the Rapid board. I always remind folks, the City of Grand Rapids, we don't control the Rapid. The Rapid is a multi-jurisdictional organization.
Right.
And so myself and 5 other cities are represented on the Rapid board. And for all of our communities, if you need a ride to the polls, you can take one of our rapid buses.
You just get in line and tell them that you're just going to go vote, and
Yep.
they'll let you ride on. Perfect.
Yep,
That's
yep.
great.
Tell them where your polling location is. They'll drop you as close by as possible, and then when you get back on, hopefully you'll have your I voted sticker.
Right.
So you can just point to that.
And take your selfie picture.
That's right. That's right. Encourage people, remind people to get out and vote, and that the
Perfect.
Rapid is providing rides
Perfect.
at no cost.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Lynn, let's talk about some other stuff. I know this past weekend we just had a really cool urban wood launch of urban wood utilization,
Yeah.
and you guys went through all the wood already. Yes.
We did. You know, this is the first year that we've done this. So for folks who don't know, we have a large site that we call Domtar, but it's over on Butterworth. It's where you take your yard waste and drop it off for free if you're a city resident. But also, if you put your leaves in bags or
Right.
you have stuff on the side of the road that we pick up, we take it to our site over there. A couple cool things that we've done over the last few years is, one, we've partnered with a third party to do composting. So a lot of our yard waste now is composted on site.
Perfect.
Which is really exciting. We use some of it at in public spaces, right-of-ways, some of our parks, and then a lot of it is sold. And so that's over at our Butterworth site. And then we also have, you know, every time there's a significant weather event, we have, unfortunately, trees that sometimes come down.
Yeah.
So we go around and we pick them up, whether they're in our parks or the right-of-way. And we take them over to the Butterworth site, and we've had this growing pile of huge logs.
That's
And-
aged just perfectly for going for your fireplace for the
Yes.
winter. Perfect.
Yes, sometimes. So we've tried to think really creatively about what do we do with this wood, and we've done two things. One is that some of the wood we've actually used to build playgrounds.
Okay.
So natural playgrounds like the one that you see at Plaster Creek or over by Sullivan Field. And then this year, for the very first time, we opened it up to the community. We said, hey, look, we have all these logs. If you want them, we want to get them repurposed, and you are welcome to come and take them. So whether you're a woodworker, so maybe instead of burning them, you
Oh, yeah.
make bats or furniture or,
Right.
you know, something creative.
Oh, there's be great nonprofits that can utilize that. Yes.
Yeah, or you can chop it up and use it in your fireplace. That's good too.
Right.
So we did this for the first time. We had 2 days. We said people needed to sign up to come and get it, and it's all gone.
All gone.
All
Oh, that's-
gone. It was a huge success.
And they did it this past Saturday and Sunday then.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, it was
Wonderful.
great. It was really
So we'll
good.
have more trees fall over the next year with the
Yeah.
storms, and you'll have more to.
Hopefully
take care
not that many.
of. Right. Yeah.
We want to both preserve and save our trees and plant more trees because we want to get to that 40% tree canopy goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, another cool thing that I know you guys are partnering with is Elk Grove with the Adopt a Drain program.
Yes.
So, and you see those all the way. When I'm riding my bike, I can see them being cluttered up with all the
Yeah.
the snow or the leaves and the
Yeah.
dirt and everything. So,
Yeah.
how do people adopt or that happen?
Yeah, so this is another way that you can partner with us and to help us keep our water clean, especially our Grand River, which goes right out into Lake Michigan. So what we ask people to do is you can go online, you can find a drain close to by where you live or work, and you can adopt it, and you can commit to helping us make sure that those drains are clear. So as you just said, especially this time of the year with all the leaves,
Yep.
they can collect around our drain basins, basically, and then if we have significant rain, sometimes you'll see like a big pool of water around our drains,
Yep.
and it's because they're clogged up. But the other thing is, we know that that eventually washes through, goes through our wastewater treatment, or goes through our, we have a separated sewer system, but we know that it gets back out
Right into the river.
the river. And so we want to clean, sometimes it's not just leaves, sometimes it's garbage, it's debris. So if we can clean that out, we not only keep the basin clear from flooding, but we also keep those pollutants out of our water.
And they're not like lifting the drain. They're really just more just cleaning
Yeah.
everything that's around it and getting
Yeah.
rid of that. So, and they just can pick one or two in their neighborhood,
Yeah.
probably even just right by their house.
Yeah, although I have to say in my neighborhood, I have a couple neighbors who are very detailed.
Okay.
And I see them out there with their big gloves on and they're reaching in and they're getting out as much as they can. So that's not the expectation.
Right, right.
But if you feel so compelled, you're welcome to do that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's just a great way to partner. You know, with winter coming up, we ask folks to do this as well. You know, to clear around your fire
Hydrant, whatever.
If there's a fire hydrant close by.
And even a bus stop right by your house.
Bus stops.
Yes.
Yeah, just, let's pitch in, help one another. Yeah, the
Be
city.
a community.
Yeah, be a community.
community.
And we do our best with our city services, but we're a large city. We're 44 square miles. We have over 560 miles of streets and sidewalks. And so we ask people to just lend a hand and help each other out.
And I can't even imagine if you're in a wheelchair or on crutches in the winter and trying to get to a bus stop. I've seen that. So yeah, if there's one right by your house, just take a little bit of time, just shovel a little bit of the snow while you're doing the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is there anything else that's kind of good that our community would like to hear about for the winter before we move on to our next segment?
Oh, a couple of reminders. So we do now have odd even parking.
Yes.
So if you are on the street and you see those odd even parking signs, please comply. I know sometimes people get a little cranky about it, and I always remind them it's really to help us be able to clear the streets.
Keep the streets up.
So,
and that's rain or snow. Even if it doesn't snow, please, or signs, please,
get in the habit, because, it's not just snow. Right now, we are doing our best to clear the streets of debris.
Right.
So we send our street sweepers. Usually you'll hear them
early in the morning, or late at night, early in the morning. Yep.
So our street sweepers are out. Our refuse, they're out, and they're trying to get things picked up and ready for the winter as well. And then we really want to get, for snow plowing, we want, especially if you live on a neighborhood street, we want to be able to plow from curb cut to curb cut so that we can keep those clear.
And go straight.
And we can't do that if we have cars parked in the way. So.
And that odd even or same side, that started on November 1st?
Yes, it started last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right, on to our next segment.
Okay.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push their creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
Hello and welcome back. As Starla said, we have with us today our new, I guess technically I can still call you new, right?
I'm
She's
planning
been here
on it for
since
about 5 years.
Okay.
So
Good, plenty of time. So our new Deputy City Manager, Kate Behrens, and Kate comes to us from the lovely state of Washington and has been with us since March, is that right?
that's right.
Yeah, so since March of this year, replacing Eric DeLong, a long-standing Deputy City Manager with the City of Grand Rapids. And so we are so glad to have you. So what I'd love to talk about in this segment is just for people who haven't met you, learn a little bit more about you. What is the scope and role of a Deputy City Manager? And then we can talk a little bit about some of the projects you're working on.
Sure.
So first, two things. One, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in government. So maybe a little bit about your journey.
All right.
And then what attracted you to Grand Rapids?
Okay. So a little bit about my journey. I am a lawyer by education, which was something I always wanted to do. I can't really pinpoint why, but from childhood, I wanted to be a lawyer. So went to law school, figured I wanted to practice environmental law, had one summer gig that was with an environmental law firm and thought, no, this was not what I had in mind. But I really got interested in land use law and sort of local planning because of how impactful that is on your day-to-day life in ways that you don't think about. But really, when you walk out your door, you are in the midst of a land use plan and a transportation plan and a utilities plan. And there are lots of people working on that, and it really impacts your day. So I found that fascinating. Got into the practice of law and land use and made my way to the city of Bellevue, Washington. They had a very unique position for lawyers in their planning department. Which was really a lot of fun. Got to work with planners, writing land use code, looking at permit appeals, and doing a lot of real estate and land use deals that the city was a part of. So to incentivize some sort of development that we wanted to see happen in Washington State, we didn't have things like tax increment finance to incentivize those things, so we had our property. What could we do with our property? What could we do with infrastructure to support the kinds of development that we wanted to see? And from there, I never got bored, never wanted to leave, never wanted to go back to private practice, and just had a lot of great mentors at the city of Bellevue and opportunities to move into city management, which was the job that I had in Bellevue before I came to Grand Rapids. So I was deputy city manager there, now deputy city manager here.
All right, so you see a posting for Grand Rapids thousands of miles away.
Right.
So what attracted you to come to Grand Rapids?
Well, like a lot of people, the pandemic really caused my husband and I and our kids to think about where we wanted to be and being close to family. So my mother-in-law, my in-laws are all here. My husband was born and raised in Kalkaska, Michigan. My parents are both from Wisconsin. I lived in Midland for my entire junior high school career. So we really felt like we need to be back closer to family. And thinking we'd make the move this summer. I had a daughter graduating from high school, a kid starting high school, so this was going to be a good summer. Grand Rapids job popped up. I talked to friends of mine that still live in Michigan. They're like, Grand Rapids is where it's at. There's a lot happening in Grand Rapids. I read about the city, read about what we now are trying to do here, and really thought it would be an exciting opportunity. So I threw my hat in the ring, said I know the timing is inconvenient because I can't move until the summer, but if it's a good fit, I'd love to be the next deputy city manager.
Awesome. You made it through. You started in March and commuted a little bit for a few months, but now you're here full time. So for folks who are not familiar with the role of the Deputy City Manager, tell us a little bit about the scope of what you do. I know you oversee a number of departments, including our planning department.
Right.
But why don't you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. So like lots of positions, there's a lot of people management and strategic management in kind of the Deputy City Manager gig. So I work directly for Mark Washington, who's the city manager, and help him sort of deploy the strategic vision of Grand Rapids through the departments that work with me. So those departments tend to be all focused in the sort of community, place making, economic development side of things. So there's economic development department, the development center, planning, building official. There's community development, which includes parks and recreation, engineering, mobile GR. So think about all of those things that sort of make the city a great place to live. as we're planning for growth, kind of the organizing principle. And my role is to make sure that those city departments have the clarity and support that they need to execute on their day-to-day services in a way that really align with what the commission has set as the vision and what my boss, Mark Washington, has set as our priorities.
Yeah. So a couple big ones right now, speaking of land use, is the updating of our master plan. And then a lot of the work that we're doing around housing, especially with the Affordable Housing Fund.
Yes, yes. So those are great projects, and hopefully folks have had a chance to take a look at the community master plan effort and are able to track that and participate in all the ways that we hope over the next year to engage the residents. But that is really looking at sort of that longer term horizon. We know we're going to grow. We know that that means change for the community, and change is hard. A community master plan is the way that we can hear directly from citizens as we prepare for that change. What's important to keep, what's important to think about as we change, how are we including everybody in that change and making sure, it's a tried and true statement, but rising tide lifts all boats. How are we making sure that that change and that growth is seen as beneficial and creates opportunities for everyone in Grand Rapids, those that are here now and those that want to be here in the future. So the Community Master Plan is a great effort and will, I think, set the foundation for a lot of our strategic initiatives after that. And growth, we know will happen, so Community Master Plan sort of sets the tone and the vision. We know right now we need more housing. We need that housing to be affordable. So we are already making efforts. The Commission's already made this a high priority. So we do have the Affordable Housing Fund, and there is a fund board that is setting sort of the investment priorities for that Affordable Housing Fund, and we hope to grow it over time as well with philanthropy and other monies coming into that fund to continue to underwrite the costs of low and very low affordable housing.
Yeah, and so a couple things with the master plan, and then we'll go back to the Affordable Housing Fund. With the master plan, as of right now, we have a very large steering committee.
That's true.
And they have been working for months to kind of get their heads around process. And about 3 to 4 weeks ago, a recommendation was brought forward to the City Commission to hire a consulting firm that will lead the process over the next 18 months. So that consulting firm is now on board and are starting to really develop a plan. So they're figuring out with the steering committee what the role of the steering committee will be as we move forward. But also the steering committee will be working with the consultant to come up with opportunities for folks to get engaged, to weigh in. Are there any updates from the community who may be interested in knowing how they can engage? What would you encourage them to do?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say check our website. We're always going to keep that up to date. We do have Planning Next, Sidewalk Detroit. Those are 2 consultants we brought in that have done this in other communities, and we're really looking for a variety of ways to allow people to get engaged. So we're going to have some community connectors. There may be opportunities there for people to help us connect back into communities that don't traditionally have the time or the access to City Hall, and we want to kind of go out and get that kind of feedback. So check the website, look for sort of a range of opportunities from somebody who's got a lot of time and energy to give to this to maybe I'll take a survey or two that comes to my inbox or to my cell phone.
Yeah.
We expect to use all of those tools over the next year.
Good. I remember, so we haven't done a master plan in over 22 years. It was 2000,
That's about right.
And we had thousands of people engaged in that process. And then we had Green Grand Rapids, which was an update to our master plan, but also amended to be a part of the master plan. And we had thousands of people involved in that process too. And I am always impressed with the creativity of these efforts. I know even with Green Grand Rapids, we had a game that we created that people could take home and do with their neighbors and then provide feedback and give it all back to the city, and then we aggregated that input. We had kind of your typical community engagement processes, but then as you said, we had surveys, we had lots of ways for people to get engaged, and I anticipate for this process we will have similar opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. We want to make it easy. We don't want you to have to be a planning wonk, a city SimCity player to be able to give some sort of feedback. So we have tapped into some of those consultant resources that really we do expect to bring some creativity to the table. We have a staff steering team that's really rolling up their sleeves and Also thinking about what are the different ways we already engage with the public and how can we create that, leverage that as an opportunity to get feedback for the community master plan. So we're not tapping into the same people for multiple pieces of feedback also. So we're hoping to make it easy, fun,
That's right.
meaningful.
We only have a couple of minutes left, so real quickly, just to provide an update with the Affordable Housing Fund. So the fund board was put together. They have met a couple times.
Yep.
They are working through kind of priorities, as well as, I believe, bylaws and some of the structure around the board itself. The City Commission, we allocated just about $7 million to that fund between money we're getting through our payment in lieu of taxes,
Right.
as well as $5 million of ARPA funds. The process will be for the recommendations to come from the Affordable Housing Fund back to the City Commission, and then final approval will be around the City Commission table with the intent to support and incent affordable housing, especially kind of smaller scale projects that aren't eligible for state funding or other types of incentives. Did I miss anything? You're closer to the day-to-day on this than I am.
Just a couple key points. So the near-term focus of the board is that $5 million in ARPA funding because of the timelines that attach to that funding. So it needs to be obligated by the end of 2024, needs to be spent by the end of 2026. So we're really looking for those projects that are some ways down the road already because of those timelines.
Shovel ready.
That's right. To use an overused term. And we expect to have the RFP out in January, looking for those ideas for that first $5 million of investment. And we would bring the board's recommendation to the commission by the end of March.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Great.
moving quickly with that first investment.
Good. That's a good update. We're just about out of time, so one last thing about the Affordable Housing Fund. Short-term funds, short-term projects, but this is really a long-term effort. So be prepared for that. So with that, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll come back together and we'll ask Kate any additional questions before she ends her time with us today.
The Wealthy Theater is Grand Rapids' local movie theater and performance center. Since 1998, it has been a host to nationally touring music groups, local theater performances, and a variety of community events. Today, the Wealthy Theater is not only a landmark community treasure with historic significance, but a pioneer in the infusion of technology and traditional theater. Underneath the elegance and classic sensibility that defines Wealthy Theater, there is a matrix of new technologies. The theater is completely digital and outfitted with cameras and microphones for concerts, theater and comedy troupes, speakers and lecturers, and so much more. Experience all that Wealthy Theater has to offer. And bring a friend. Be surprised by the Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is a world of music. We aim to shine a light on underserved musical artists in a non-commercial format with no advertisements. Volunteers come in to create personalized music programming that broadcasts over the air at 88.1 FM to West Michigan and via the internet to listeners all over the world. These listeners sponsor our efforts, keeping WYCE independent and community-owned. Musicians use the station to broaden their audience and build support for their latest projects by submitting their music to be included in our broadcast and performing live in studio. Businesses find their customers through underwriting, nonprofits inform the community to their mission, and listeners stay informed about local events. We believe that music is a powerful force that creates quality relationships in our community, that speaks to our emotions, and provides the soundtrack to our lives.
and welcome back. So, Kate or Catherine?
Kate.
Kate, okay. So one of the questions that came through was from Bree, and she was just curious of how the city is going to be working with how housing prices continue to go up, and how will we be able to keep it affordable with current citizens, but also with a lot of new people moving into our city. And is there a sustainable plan? Because the prices are, rent is super expensive right now.
Yes, and so that is definitely a priority for the city. There's sort of a complicated array or a multi-pronged array of ways that we want to address that situation. So overall, we know that we need more housing units just across the board, so more supply. And there are a number of things that we have brought forward, and the commission has made changes to make that a little bit easier. So through our zoning code, opening up more properties for development, streamlining some of the ways that development can happen, addressing some of those issues to just make it easier to unlock that potential. On the rent and affordability side, so we hope that helps to some extent, just having more supply. Then recognizing that you will consistently need to make sure there is affordable housing at some levels. We also are increasing the way that we bring additional resources to bear to subsidize the cost of housing for people. So we've long invested through our community development department in affordable housing projects. We talked just a little bit about the Affordable Housing Fund.
Right,
That's new monies coming in from the city, from our general fund dollars from ARPA, to give us more ability to subsidize that. And there's also regional efforts under Housing Kent's umbrella to look at as the whole region about how are we dealing with growth in West Michigan. It's not just Grand Rapids that's growing, it's all of our neighbors. So we really all need to take a look at how we are meeting that demand with a variety of housing types. So we continue that regional coordination. On the other side, it's what can we do to help our citizens have more disposable income, more income to spend. And so there's a whole host of economic development programs that we are continually doing, using our TIF funding, for example, to spur new business development that brings new jobs, that brings higher paying jobs. So that's starting to be something in our strategic plan that we look at is, are we bringing not only new jobs, but new jobs that pay at a level that we are sure helps people afford the housing that's here.
Their housing and their rent, or their utilities and car payments and all of that stuff. Okay. So now we have a question for the deputy city manager from Manny. What does a deputy city manager do, and how is it different from the assistant city manager?
So
I had that question too.
Right,
so
very
I
good
get
question.
It.
Deputy city manager and assistant city manager, some of the tasks are very similar. I think it's just the scope and departments and breadth that's involved there, but a lot of it is people management. So it's that translation of the strategic vision and resource allocation and helping with some of those decisions, with helping the departments have what they need in terms of clarity, in terms of resources, in terms of strategic priorities, how are we tackling those things, and helping department directors work through that, and then helping the manager translate what we're seeing as real-time change and challenges within the departments, and understanding where within the organization we can best address that. So we're continually adapting what it is we're doing, and so we tend to be that bridge between what's happening outside and the city operations, and helping work through the challenges of sort of adapting within our resources and all of the things we need to deliver.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll add too, so that it's an interesting structure of government, right?
It is,
City manager, council form of government is different than some other cities. Actually, every city has their own charter. But the city manager, the other thing the deputy does is that when the city manager is not available, the deputy city manager stands in. So when our city manager is out of town or on vacation or at a conference, very often it's the deputy city manager who steps into that space. And then very often if the city manager isn't available for something because they have, 3 things on their schedule that day, the deputy city manager steps in. So really it's kind of that next in line. Like, so for myself, on the city commission, every year I appoint a president of the commission, which is one of my colleagues on the city commission. And then when I'm not available, the president of the commission stands in for me. So that's another really important part of the deputy city manager job that's different than the assistants. and there's a whole host of other things as well. Just when you look at the org chart, who's responsible for what, and the scope of the responsibility under a deputy city manager typically tends to be quite a bit larger.
Okay. All right, so then we have another question for the deputy city manager from Howard. How long is the Grand Rapids strategic plan good for?
So typically, we look at a planning horizon of about 20 years, but there's a lot can change in 20 years.
Yeah.
So as the mayor alluded to in the last segment, we'll do things along the way to update pieces of a strategic community master plan, or add a provision or a chapter about a topic that just is entirely new. So it's a living document to some extent, but that comprehensive look is typically 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, for the master plan.
For masters, that's
Yeah,
different than the
so-
strategic plan.
Okay, yeah, it's a
Okay.
little confusing because we
Yes.
also have a strategic plan,
Right.
which is much more organizational. And we just actually, at our last city commission meeting last week, we had an update to our strategic plan where we made some amendments and added and revised some of our goals.
Okay.
The strategic plan of the city is broken down under 6 pillars, and then under each of those pillars, we have very specific objectives and goals and timelines. And they, around environmental sustainability and public safety and housing, economic development,
Inclusiveness
good government,
and diversity.
Yes.
Yes.
So, so just to be clear, so we do have our strategic plan tends to be 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And then as we just saw last week, we amend it as needed. It's more of a, I'd say, living document. But a master plan, most every community has a master plan, especially cities. In fact, you need an updated and approved and adopted master plan very often to apply for certain types of state funding.
Okay.
You need that also for parks. We need an updated parks master plan, which tends to be 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But we need to have that in place if we're going to apply for grants through the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund.
So that's the master plan that we just did now, and we hadn't done it in 20 years.
So the master plan we're working on right now is an
Okay.
update of our citywide master
Got it.
plan,
Okay.
which hasn't been done in 20 years.
Okay.
It's been added to, like with the Grand Rapids and GR Forward, which are other planning processes. Those have been added to the master plan, but the master plan itself will be updated and likely approved within the next 2 years. And that should last 10 to 20 years.
And then our strategic plan, you did it like a year ago, and you're amending it now, or?
We did it in 2018.
2018.
2018.
So
We
it's like a
just-
3 to 5 years, so you did
Yes.
kind of an amendment to go for the next couple of years. Okay.
And the best way to think about it is strategic plan at the city is really internally focused on city services, where the master plan is a blueprint for land use for our city, and it's a community-wide plan that really is focused on, strengthening our neighborhoods, but ultimately it's the land use plan that then the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals looks at when someone comes in and requests a development.
Okay.
So they should be like, let's say there's a development right now planned on Division, and does it fit the master plan? And if it doesn't, then they have to go through a special land use or a variance where the
Okay.
neighbors are involved before that development is approved.
Okay.
So the Planning Commission uses the master plan really as their blueprint for either approving or denying requests. Did I capture that accurately?
good.
Okay, you're my expert. I'm just, I've learned along the way.
Perfect. All right, we have another
expert.
question from Lauren, also again for you, Kate. Who sets the priorities of the city plan? Is that the city manager or the mayor? And is there any place for citizens to participate in that process?
Yeah.
So again, assuming that's the city plan is referring to the community master plan.
Right.
Yes.
I would say, as the mayor talked about, that talks about growth and land use planning. So that sort of sets the table already.
Okay.
Growth and master planning. Then we're really engaging the community. Given that we are forecasting this sort of growth over the next 20 years, what community are your priorities for, again? What are those pieces of Grand Rapids character that we know for sure we don't want to lose? What are those things that we know for sure we need to be more inclusive of? And then that ultimately comes to the commission to adopt that community master plan. But we really are, as we talked about, using a very robust steering committee, citizen and stakeholder steering committee, and a year's worth of engagement to really hear those priorities directly from the community, because as the mayor talked about, it is sort of that community planning document.
Okay.
Yeah, and that will also, before it comes to the City Commission for approval, the master plan update and recommendations will also go before our Planning Commission, and our Planning Commission, those are 9 citizens who are appointed to serve on the Planning Commission, and then the Board of Zoning Appeals as well. That's a citizen board. Both of those bodies will also weigh in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything? Oh, we do have one more question. We good for? Brian is asking, the county is launching a new facility to reduce waste going to the landfill. And is the city participating in this program or paying for it?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, is this,
Yeah,
go-
I'm
yes,
happy to answer
please,
that.
Mayor.
So the county DPW, Department of Public Works, they have created this vision for a sustainable business park where they want to divert, as Brian indicates, garbage away from the landfill,
Correct.
and they want to create sustainable options for that waste. So we are partners with DPW, but right now in the city of Grand Rapids, and this is the tentative plan even with the Sustainable Business Park, all of our waste in the city of Grand Rapids goes to either one of 2 places. It either goes to the waste to energy site or to the recycling. So we have the highest participation of recycling in the entire county because of our system here. And so we take a lot of our waste to the recycling. Of course, we want to divert anything from going to the landfill. We know that that's not
Absolutely.
where we want refuse to go. You know, you want to reuse it or recycle it. But what the plan is, so our current contract for waste in the city of Grand Rapids, and this is for all 6 cities, our contract to take our waste to the waste to energy site it is for another 3 years, and then we'll determine if we want to continue that.
Okay.
But as of right now, the waste energy site is creating energy that then is sold to Consumers Energy or used at the steam plant.
Yep.
And so that, as of right now, will continue to be what we do with waste in the city of Grand Rapids for the next several years.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we will take a break.
How do you build a strong local food economy? Meet Chris. Chris is opening Osteria Rosa, a locally sourced Italian restaurant in a building brought back to life by 616 Development. But he doesn't know any local farmers to supply him with food year-round. This is Melissa. Melissa runs the Fulton Street Farmers Market and publishes a long list, even in the dead of winter, of available produce, meats, bakery goods, and more on the Rapidian. This is Amy. Amy wants to do more to support the farmers and her local food economy. Amy talks to Melissa, who introduces her to farmers at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, and Amy, in turn, publishes their stories, also on the Rapidian. Chris hears about the Rapidian and now has access to a local grocery list and information that he needs to make connections with local farmers. He feeds his patrons with local food year-round. Connections multiply. Meals are shared. A stronger local food economy is built.
Hello and welcome back. My name is Starla McDermott. And okay, we already have a question for Mayor Bliss.
All right.
It says, with the process of the GRPD co-response team, is the city investing more in that program in its next budget?
Yes, so I'm so glad somebody asked this question. This has been an effort we've talked about for a long time at the city. We kicked it off, this kind of idea of a co-response team, about 2 years ago when we created the homeless outreach team.
Yep.
So the homeless outreach team has a couple individuals from our fire department, police department, and then a team of mental health and behavioral health workers that we contract with Network 180 to provide that support. The co-response team is a little bit different. So the HOT team goes out proactively throughout the week and weekends, and they work.
Water, coats, whatever you need. Yep.
And they're trying to do proactive work with individuals experiencing homelessness. The co-response team we kicked off in July, and it pairs a trained police officer who's trained in mental health, behavioral health. We call it trauma-informed training, with a licensed clinician.
Okay.
And they work side by side. Currently, it's Monday through Friday. When calls come into dispatch, it'll be determined if that call is more appropriate for the co-response team.
Oh.
So well checks if there's a concern about someone with self-harm, if they think it's an individual that really is struggling with some type of mental health crisis. So that team will go out together. The officer will respond and make sure the scene is safe. And then typically the clinician with the officer will kind of take it from there.
How many co-response teams are there?
So they are our only co-response team, and they're there Monday through Friday, typically during the day, because they work together.
Got it, okay.
So that's kicked off in July. We've had, our update a couple weeks ago, it was over 380 responses that they had done together.
Okay.
And the outcomes have been really positive. So we've been able to divert individuals from the emergency room, from jail, connect them with community services, work with the family to provide better support based on whatever the situation is.
Right.
And make more appropriate referrals on, a service that can help that individual based on what they're experiencing. I would love to have the program expanded. I want to see it in the evenings and on weekends. I'd love for it to be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week team, which would require us probably to add 2 to 4 more teams. Right now, the problem is staffing. So the City Commission, we approved funding in our last budget that was approved back in May. That's why the co-response team started in July. That's the start of our fiscal year. The problem right now is both at Network 180 and at our police department is that we're just understaffed, like so many other organizations.
It's all over West Michigan,
the
world actually. But
we would love to add, but as of right now, we're about 30 officers down. And then Network 180 is obviously working hard to fill open positions. So we know there's a huge mental health need all over our community. Nonprofits are trying to hire. So my hope is that as soon as we are able to fill more positions, we'll be able to expand the team. I can tell you, I believe that there's support around the City Commission table to expand that.
Okay.
But right now, we just need to be really realistic with the community. Even if we wanted to expand it, we couldn't right now because we don't have staffing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a question for the mayor from Shayna. She says that I've heard it's going to be a winter with heavy snowfall. I heard the same. Has the city budgeted for lots of plowing and salt? And if it's a light winter, what happens to that extra money that was budgeted for it?
Yeah. So within our budget, we do budget for our Department of Public Works. Those are the individuals that are out there snow plowing. And how our department is set up is that they have multiple jobs. So even if it's not, there's not snow to plow, they're doing something else because there's lots of work to be done in Public Works, right? So we have, cleanups that we have to do. We have graffiti removal. We have lots of other things that department takes care of. I can tell you we typically plan for an average type of year. If there are severe weather events, we do have the ability to call in individuals to help with overtime. And sometimes we have to do a mid-year supplemental to do that, but typically it's within the budget. We're able to solve for that. Okay. And then with salt, you may see our big, huge salt container over there by 131.
Yep.
So we do typically have plenty of salt, and then any salt that's not used, it can be used the following year. We do partner with other communities if we need help. So you may remember a few years ago we had a really bad ice storm in, I believe, end of February. We had a ton of trees down. We had wires down. We had power outages.
Yep.
We were able to pull support from other communities that didn't have the same significant event as we did. We seem to be hit harder than some of the folks south of us.
the outsider.
So we were able, and we have great relationships across the board with other jurisdictions. So when we need help, typically we're able to get that help, and then we often pay for that with overtime or what. So at the city we have a contingency budget, and typically within that contingency budget we can pay for those any additional, work that we need done in the middle of winter, even with the potential for a severe winter. What we have found, if you look back over the past 15, 20 years, we may have more severe weather events, but they are in a shorter period of time. So it's 3 months instead of 5.5 months,
Right, yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
we used to have more snow in November than we have now.
Yeah, so here it is,
And
a gorgeous day out.
Another gorgeous day. We may
Right.
have a couple snowfalls this month, but it won't stick typically. Our most severe months are January, February, and a little bit of March. So even though we may have more snow, it's in
In
a
a short amount of time, yeah.
condensed timeline.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a question from George. I have a park across the street that isn't marked as a dog park, but the community at large treats it as such. I don't feel safe walking my kids through the park, and with so many loose dogs, who do I report this to? Oh, good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. You should call. Well, you can do a couple things. You can call 311, or you can call our Parks Department directly.
Okay.
So if it's not a designated dog park, people are supposed to leave their dogs on a leash.
Yep.
And clean up after them.
Yes, that's another one.
Unfortunately, I don't have a dog right now because he passed away recently. But as a very avid dog owner and responsible dog owner, I feel very strongly that people should be very respectful of people who don't have dogs and other people's space,
Right.
especially public space.
Right.
But yeah, please just call the city. Let the Parks Department know. We can go out there and we can put up signs, or we can enforce and let people know they have to keep their dog on a leash.
All
It's
right.
not safe. And I understand, some people are really afraid of dogs.
Right.
And we need to be respectful of that.
Right. Well, that kind of goes back to the same thing with, like, if you want to clean the areas where the bus stops are. The same thing when you're walking your pets around downtown. Please clean up after them, because I do see that a lot too. Is
Yeah.
people not cleaning up.
Yeah, and in a densely populated area like a city, we all have to do our part to
Right.
make sure that when we do have spaces that are shared, whether they're parks or sidewalks or public spaces, that we need to be respectful of those spaces.
All right, and we have another question from Don for Mayor Bliss. Why are there 30 JRPT spots open, and what is the city doing to recruit?
Yeah. So we have been short-staffed in the police department going on a couple years. There's lots of different theories about that, but the reality is that police departments all over the country are struggling with recruiting law enforcement. Even right here in Kent County, almost every single city, other than one that I know of, and our county, we're all short-staffed. And so recruitment has been more challenging, I think, because of the climate. It's a really tough job. It's a position where there's a lot of scrutiny and oversight and concern. And so, it's just we don't have as many individuals going into law enforcement. We don't have as many people going into the police academy. I just heard about a week ago that the cadets that are the individuals currently in the police academy right now, 75% of them are already spoken for.
Wow.
Meaning that they already have
They know where
police
they're gonna go.
departments
Wow.
where they're going. So we just know it's very difficult. And then you couple that with a extremely competitive job market, increases in pay. You can get paid more than a police officer doing a lot of other jobs with less stress. So there's a whole host of factors going into that. Some things we've done at the city, we do have a recruit program, meaning that if you want to be a police officer at Grand Rapids Police Department, there's a interview process, and then if you want to be a recruit, we will actually pay for you to go through the academy. So we're not just hiring people who are in academy or who've already gone through the academy. We're trying heavily to recruit from folks who live in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
So that we call it Grow Your Own. We have individuals from right here who are able to work at the city. But then, so we'll pay for you to go through the academy. We'll pay you a stipend to live off of, so you can pay your bills while you're in academy. And then hire you after that, and then the training, there's an additional training process once you become an officer. We also started to hire lateral moves. So we'll respect the seniority you have in another department if you want to do a lateral move. And then about 3 weeks ago, the City Commission, we approved a contract with a recruiting firm that has expertise in recruiting and hiring law enforcement.
Okay.
So they'll be working with our department, with community members, to do very targeted recruitment.
Okay.
To try to fill those spots. But you talk to our chief and he'll tell you 10 years ago we'd have hundreds of applications for 5 openings. And now we just don't get.
Well, I even remember even my brother was doing like a special program in high school where he was partnering and doing some side things. Is that something that we do here?
We do have a Youth Explorers program.
Okay.
We do have a cadet program. We have an internship program.
Okay.
A lot of the individuals who go through those programs will end up getting hired.
Okay.
We have a lot of people who are eligible for retirements.
Right.
So in the 90s, there was a big push to hire additional law enforcement. So you had hundreds of people who were hired at the same time, which means they're eligible for retirement
at the same time.
And that was, again, that wasn't just at GRPD, that was at law enforcement departments all over the country.
Okay.
So you do have, and other industries have talked about this too, you have people retiring, you have not as many people interested, who are in their 20s or coming out of college. Yeah. And then you have these openings all over, and everybody's recruiting from the same pool of folks.
Right.
So.
Oh, that's rough. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this. Any other little pieces of information you'd like to share with us before we end our program?
I'll just end by saying, please get out and vote tomorrow, Election Day. Lots of exciting things happening still in the city. I encourage you to still get outside and enjoy the parks, and let us know when there are parks where there's issues. But Rose Park Circle is going to open up for ice skating.
Perfect, yes.
And lots of fun winter events coming up. There's holiday shop hops. I encourage everyone to think about supporting local as we get into the holiday season. So there's lots of fun things. We have Santa Claus, the Santa Parade downtown again this year.
Yep.
So just a lot of ways to still get out and connect and enjoy the season.
And they'll do the tree.
We're doing the tree lighting at the end of the month as well.
Okay.
Yes. So lots of fun stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And you have a wonderful month. And
you
thank
too.
you all for tuning in.
Thanks.